Hello and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
And on a high note.
We'll do it. Start on a high note.
Yeah.
I gotta build, sometimes I gotta build up to the excitement, Mike.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, are you on your first cup of coffee during this call, or is there any pre?
Oh yeah. There's a first. This is first cup for me.
This is my first sip.
Whoa. No wonder. No wonder the excitement is just exuding from this podcast.
So my goodness, guys, it is so good to be here.
If I told you this is my fourth cup of espresso,
I would not doubt it.
Okay.
Is it really your fourth cup?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do you count them as each espresso shot? Is it a different cup, or is 4 shots of espresso?
Or is it a double shot?
Wow, that feels like it's the same thing. You're really tripping me up here. No, it's when I say a shot of espresso, I'm not saying a whole cup of coffee. By that point, I'd be doing this upside down.
How much are you running through the
espressos? Have single shots or double shots? Or do you have like a Nespresso?
4 single shots. It's 4 single shots.
Okay, 4 single shots.
Still a lot of coffee. So,
do you have like a Nespresso?
I do, and that's probably why I'm drinking.
That's bad.
More.
It's dangerous because just like
it is right
pop
there.
It in, run the machine. Pop it in, run the machine.
Literally right in front of me.
You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that like a cup of lighter roast coffee has much more caffeine than espresso.
Ooh, I'd have to ask chat to know if they know that. I don't know the answer to that one off the top of my head.
I think I just found that out too.
Maybe that's why I like all the light blonde roast coffees, because there's more coffee in there.
Maybe that's why I'm doing more 4 cups.
Zip.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, I've had like 4 cups of espresso, and it's like, well,
if there's anything that sounds more counterintuitive when they're supposed to call it bold roast, you're like, yeah, that's what I want than bold. It's like, that's actually kind of more close to caffeine free.
Well, apparently Google thinks it's a thing because I typed it in halfway into Google and it's like, does lighter roast have more caffeine? And it literally filled out my sentence for me. So apparently people are Googling this already as well. I'll see if I can do a quick research thing here. While we're diving into this immensely important topic for all of our coffee drinkers out there. Tommy, you want to give us a little bit of a run-up on our topic? Actually, before I do that, I forgot to mention, any announcements that we should discuss? I do have one that I should at least point on. I don't know if you guys had any other topics you wanted to kind of touch on.
No, just the only most important one
I was about to say the only elephant in the air.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not in the room. You guys.
Take it away, Seth.
Earlier this week, the Power BI.tips team.
Oh my gosh.
No, the exciting announcement, we've been posting about it a little bit, is the new addition of the gallery to the theme generator.
That's been a major improvement.
Oh my God.
It's a major. So it's the fun part is it's just starting. So essentially what we've done is kind of take all of the previous things that we've been developing over the years, layouts, scrims, theme generator, obviously, and with PBIP packages and all that, we can combine all this together. So what the gallery are the combination of all these artifacts that are open to the community to download and use. So it's super cool and exciting because it's very easy for business users to make all of their reporting look great, which is we have a video out there, so check it out. It's a lot of fun. Our subscription allows you to actually customize and build on top of or change all of these project files, which is, I think, where the real cat's pajamas is. But save them up in your subscription, alter the theme, change visuals, add more whatever you want. But the basis of all of that work to generate background themes and like good looking reports is pretty much done for you. So like you have such a huge head start from just using our tool and building from scratch. And it also opens up the door to the community and contributors. So on the blog post, and maybe we should post that in the chat here, Mike.
Oh, good idea.
There's an opportunity for, if you want to contribute, because you are also a theme generator. Oh, that's actually kind of funny. a producer of themes, and you
Yes.
want your theme to be in the gallery for the larger community to download and use, fill out a form on that blog post, and we'll take a look at your stuff and get you access.
And let me just tell you, as an avid theme creator and someone who uses this tool weekly, not because sponsored by Power BI Tips or not because we do a podcast.
Tommy, you must. We force Tommy to. If he doesn't, we can't be friends unless he uses our tool.
Could not be farther from the truth. But and who just likes to use the best tooling out there. Who finally saw that this week. I mean, this is huge because I've always loved seeing what other people have done and trying to get there. Obviously, usually starting from scratch.
Yeah.
But now to have that gallery, I know this is already too much to ask, but will you also put other people's themes there if they can publish them and then you can just choose from?
So that's the whole point of the contributor program. So the blog post has a form for people to, show us some of the works that they've done, right? Yeah. And get contributor access and
just a color palette.
Start publishing stuff out there.
I think the hardest thing people have is not just like obviously the backgrounds are incredible, going to be a great start for people, but just having not just a quick color palette, but having the whole style there too to quickly go into. Oh, man, guys, kudos.
And to be perfectly clear, everything on the gallery is free. You don't need a subscription. You don't need to show up. You can literally go to the page, drop on the page, pick something that you like by color, and there's even a great little preview button. So if you click on one of these, if you click on one of the icons, you click on it, it'll open up a preview and show you, here's a sample, like not sample of report, but sample of the pages, where the visuals go. Here's all the background images you get. So it's basically off the shelf, ready to go, pre-built reports for you. And then all you have to do is show up, download it, and then you can start connecting your data to a live connected data set. And I mean, if we think about the design process, someone should be focusing on this side of things, the design, the images, the background, the layouts, and someone else on your team should be focusing on the modeling side of things and what visuals make sense to put on your report pages. These two work streams can now live side by side. So if you have a larger team, you can focus a style and the design UI UX side of the world, and then you can have another part of your team. So this just takes care of all that. So it gives you at least a good place to start.
Yeah. But and I think, Mike, you and I talk about this a little bit in the video itself, but there's this real, I think, unique correlation this is for business users too, right? There's a large gap between business intelligence people who are already developing reports for wider sharing.
Yes.
But the story here is, if we think about PowerPoint, right? It's not, if you're a business person, you're presenting slides to, your manager or somebody else, you're not just throwing text on the slide. You're trying to make it look good. And you do that. And every slide, you're making changes and making it pretty. And this is the same concept there.
Yes.
Right. And that's what you get in our free version of this is you just get these slides that look really good.
Yep.
And you can tweak them and you can change them in the Power BI files. Where that gets really cool is once you understand that, hey, every time I present something, if I'm presenting a Power BI report and I'm building all my own stuff, wouldn't it be great to have the master slide file part of PowerPoint? And that's where having the additional subscription where you can download, tweak, modify, make that original work your own and tailor it to all your needs really comes in strong. So we're already doing this, presentation type thing. I think this just opens the doors to a much wider audience, and we're really excited about it.
You know who would have loved this the most? Chuck Sterling would have died. I did a full academy day with him, and I still use a lot of that training. I have to redo our demo on the wireframing now and use this. And I know you guys are not going to say this, but I need to say this because I've seen people online. You know what the subscription cost me? Rather than 4 cups of Nespresso, I have 3 in the morning for 1 day a month. That's it. So you guys don't have to say anything, but man alive, best non-cup of espresso I've ever had.
There you go. And it accelerates your excitement in the morning when you get in and you can just start building reports. Amazing.
Well, you can just bring
there's already some cool stuff coming out in the gallery. One of them I'll point out here is Seth and I've had this idea of being able to create backgrounds that have a transparency to them. So you change the background page color and then you add shading on top of it that changes the color. There's a really good looking visual out there right now called translucent, and there is no color on it. It is literally gradient shades of color across the page. And if you change the page color, you can change the report page color to match anything that you want.
Yeah.
It's literally 100% flexible, and you can just start from a quick working spot and just build a ton. It's amazing. So I'm very excited where we're coming with this. Many more things to come. The designs are getting better. We're doing more things with it. So stay tuned. There's a lot more stuff to come from the gallery. We hope this helps you build awesome looking reports on top of your data. That's really the point there. Awesome. The link is in the chat window, and I'll also add it to the description as well. So it'll be in the description of this video additionally. I know we're going to get to our topic today, but I do have one more thing I'm very excited about. And this is another area I'd like to push into. If you follow, there's a specific LinkedIn, I guess, company, I guess it would be, but it's basically from Microsoft, and it's from Miguel Myers. It's called PBI Core Visuals. I don't know if you saw this update. I believe it literally came out either this morning or something. I saw it come across my LinkedIn feed, and I'll copy the link here. And you have to be a LinkedIn, I guess, signed into LinkedIn to at least see it. So I'll drop the LinkedIn link here. And then this is a preview, a video of the new slicer visual that's coming. There are images. There are different ways to format a card. There are more buttons. You have to watch this video. This is going to fundamentally change the game when it comes to slicers and slicing inside your reports. This is going to be amazing. You're going to need some time to really sit down and digest all the things that this slicer can do, because Miguel Myers, who's a wizard with amazing things designing in Power BI, I mean, he was doing this stuff like really early on. Before Power BI had all these new fancy features, Miguel was designing things that I didn't understand how it worked. I just literally flabbergasted. And so what he's done is Miguel's now hired by Microsoft. He's now on a team, and he's leading a team of revamping and building new visuals called PBI Core Visuals. He's kind of branded it, of course, with his branding and everything. He's always got branding things on top of everything. So it's awesome. I've been helping out with that team of people to kind of test and develop and design and think about what needs to be included in these visuals, because there's a lot of things you can build. But Miguel's doing a really good job of picking some of the best, most challenging features, and he's giving you a demo of this new slicer that's coming out. It's going to be amazing. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out there. You have to go check out the LinkedIn post. You got to go watch the little snippet or video. It's a short little video of things that you can do with it. But wow, it's going to really change and enhance our reporting capabilities. I was throwing away slicers because I just didn't like the experience.
Yeah.
Now that we have this slicer with all these extra features, I'm thinking I probably need to revisit a slicer now. And I need to think about
November.
Yes, it's coming up soon.
For his post says coming in November.
So it's coming soon.
Crazy.
So it's not out yet. So stay tuned. It's coming, but he's giving you some really big teasers here. They're kind of, I guess, in the final stages of testing since it's coming out in November release. Anyways, very excited about that. Super excited to hear that the visuals are getting some much needed love here as they're getting some updates. There's a lot of missing features comparatively from Power BI to other tools that are out there right now. So anyways, I just want to point that out as well. I think it's a really good link and really appreciate the hard work that he's putting into that.
100%. I'm like nothing in almost not in all of Power BI, but one of the best things that Microsoft has done is hire him a long time ago.
Yes.
And put him in charge of this, because everything we've seen thus far, but like I'm so like looking at this, I'm like, yep, now I remember all of his influence on making things look fantastic, and we're going to get to play with it. And it's going to be part of the tool by default. That's amazing. Super cool.
Anyways, I thought that was really good to point that out there as well. There's some very exciting things coming in the next couple releases. It seems like a lot of the energy has been moved over towards Fabric. It's been a lot of, if it feels, have you ever watched little kids play soccer, right? You watch little kids play soccer.
Soccer.
The ball moves, and then there's like a little swarm of bees that like bzz, and they buzz over to the ball, and they all swarm the ball and the different. So as the ball moves, you can literally tell where the ball is without even seeing the ball, because there's a little horde of children that are all running around the ball. No one's playing positions. Everyone's just trying to get to the ball and just randomly kicking it. Sometimes it has felt like recently, Microsoft has not been playing positions And we've been like, oh, Fabric, let's all run over there. And so everyone runs towards Fabric, and then, oh, Power BI, let's run back to the other side. Like, so I'm feeling like we're seeing some really substantial improvements on Power BI visuals, getting some substantial love back to the core part of Power BI, because I think we really need it. I think we need some more enhancements there. So it's been encouraging to kind of see the team spreading out a little bit more. It feels a bit more even as we develop things. Along those lines, have last opener here before I get going. I'm getting all excited about stuff in Fabric now. I was doing some testing the other day. Have either of you had a chance to test shortcuts inside Fabric?
It's not part of the workflow, so I'm sure it sounds like a really good example right now.
Well, I don't have a good example. I was just one, the documentation on Microsoft's website sucks. I don't know where to go to get the links. It's not very clear. I had to try for like 30 minutes to figure out what's the right combination. So let me say it this way. There will be a video incoming of how you can connect an external Delta table into your Fabric environment. So what I have done is I have lots of projects that I work on where I do a lot of data engineering in Databricks. It's all in Spark. It makes Delta tables. So I have a ton of tables just living around. Some of those tables are tables that I'm using for Power BI monitoring. I have a whole bunch of APIs coming in. I'm grooming the data down. I was like, I wonder how hard it would be to make a shortcut to those tables. Well, once you get the right URLs and get it all synced up, it's amazing because I'm doing all of this data engineering work outside of Power BI, and I just provide the folder path to my Delta table. Boom, it lights up. Cool. It's automatically in the warehouse. Wonderful. I can write SQL against it. Sweet. And then it's in a default data set already, ready to go. So I had from connecting to the blob, the Delta table externally.
Sweet.
To like within less than 30 seconds, I'm in a report trying to rip out columns and say, what's this column doing? What's that column doing? I was flabbergasted. I was like, okay, this is what I want to see. I want to see other tools that can do data engineering things and lift that stuff and bring it directly to my data sets. That's what I want. I want my data set to directly. Dude, I was floored.
Put it up.
Yeah. Okay.
This felt like next level stuff that I had just stumbled into. I was like, oh my gosh, this opens up a huge world for me where I don't need to engineer everything inside a Microsoft tool. I can do it however I want as long as it gets the Delta format. I was very impressed.
Well, but this is what's really cool with that whole path. And I'm glad you vetted it and tested it because I need.
It's awesome.
There's one other piece in here I need to talk to you on the side about, which will be interesting once they actually light up Fabric in Central and North Central, where I have all of my fun stuff.
Yes.
But the point I was going to make is you don't have to rebuild all of your engineering. Like if you're already in doing Databricks and building tables and all that kind of stuff, like it's fantastic that you'd be able to leverage that in other areas for different things without data movement, right? It's without another step to copy data somewhere. And that is one of the really unique things of them introducing that feature in Fabric, which I love. Glad you're vetting it for me and making it easier for me down the road when I implement it.
Any company who's using Databricks to do some sort of data engineering things, whatever they're doing, any company, they will find immediate value from showing up and using their existing engine. You could have been doing this for 5 years, 6 years. Yeah. And the fact that I can just now hook into the table, no import, the table just appears.
Sweet.
I mean,
a few of our previous episodes a little obsolete, but we talked about the migration too. They actually just announced too, you can now push Dataverse as a shortcut to Fabric.
Okay, another one. I was like, oh my gosh, another really good. Like it's literally a one button click kind of thing. Well, and I have to read the article a bit more. I haven't done it myself, but I have a customer who's using Dynamics, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna need to check this out. Like, just do your data work inside Dynamics. Just keep it there. Just make what you need to do. Tables, views, whatever you want. Do it in Dynamics, and just boom, now it's a table inside Power BI. That's huge. So there's a lot of really interesting things that they're doing, and I feel like it's the vision for what they're producing now, I think is the right vision. And it's giving me a lot more options to be able to design what I need to with the tools I want to work with. Which anyways.
Didn't they also just release column and row level security?
Yeah, column and row level security was just announced as well too. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like, the ball has been running around the court here, or the field, and everyone's huddling around the ball. And like, finally, I feel like we're starting to spread out a little bit, and like some, features are coming across the platform now, as opposed to everything kind of just being fabric centric.
Yeah.
Anyways, super excited about those things. I think that's all I have for introductions of things. Let's get into our main topic today. We're going to talk about the Power BI linguistics schema and who's using it, what's the impact of it, how's it going to go from there. So, Tommy, give us some more details around this topic, and where do you want to see this go?
Yeah, so this came up because in the September update to Power BI, they actually released a really great new feature to the QA tooling. And the QA tooling is something, if you haven't seen it before, in Power BI Desktop, actually allows you to look at the model and have related words. So if you want to say, well, we have councils, but we really want to call them products, or our sales team calls it something else, units, whatever it may be, we can associate those words together. So if you wanted to say, for example, like, hey, what's my best customer? Well, customer may not be in that model. So we can kind of form that. So it's been great. It's a really nice set of tooling. You can actually even see what other people in the service have asked questions. Say, oh, everyone's asking this way. But there were still some limitations where you had no association, because if you want to say like, well, who's my best customer? Well, or like, we can't really associate certain words in terms of binding together. So that's actually what they just came out with now, where we can actually define the adjectives and the verbs, where we can want to say like, hey, what's the who sold what's our best books, or who sold them? Now we can say, well, we have stores, or we have these managers. They sell books. And that idea has never been there, where you always have to define each field in your question. So now we can actually say, who sold the most books? Stores sell books, and you can teach Power BI that. So binding fields together to say this one is, this one represents the other, is really neat. And there's actually a now new tab in QA tooling that'll actually choose where the adjectives fit in, what fields are binded, which one's in a sense a parent to the other. And this is, I think, one of the very needed things. We've talked about this before, but I think this opens up the question again, or it opens up the door on, okay, is this enough for us? What does this actually mean for us? Are we going to start building right away with this? Or what are still some of the limitations? Because we're getting closer and closer to associating our models with really that literacy. But that doesn't mean the organization is.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to kind of go into this topic a bit more. So, just for reference here, Q&A, or the Q&A portion, actually refers to questions and answers. So Q&A is the feature, and I believe, I think they've actually removed, honestly, if you have the new visual editing experience turned on. I think, wasn't it previously you could double click the canvas and the Q&A would just pop up? I don't know if that's still on by default or not, but I believe you can turn that off now. And so in your settings for the reports, you can just have that not double click, turn on the visuals there so you can't get Q. So in some respects, I feel like the language, or the linguistic schema, they've kind of, I don't know, moved away from it. Let me say it this way. I don't have a lot of customers coming to me saying, hey, can you help me improve the linguistic schema of my data model so I can get people to ask questions of it better? We're struggling with other things that are like way more simple than tweaking the linguistic schema of a model.
Well,
what are your thoughts?
I always remember this one, because this is like a 4 or 5 year old feature.
Yes.
Originally.
Yes.
Right. So it's been in the tool. We
built a tool for it.
We have Lingo, right?
We have Lingo, which is a tool that
there was no code editor.
No code editor.
You had to use VS Code. So you got really excited about this, Mike, and built a tool around it. So if folks want to go look on the site, yep, there's a code editor. Yep. The thing I remember about this announcement, the demo was super cool, right? It was almost 4 or 5 years ago what the experience for presented in such a way, in that you would have with AI, where you're like, I'm gonna ask this question and I get this answer, and the reports were amazing, and it was like the most meteoric rise and crash I've ever seen. Because is it super valuable? Absolutely. The amount of work required means proper model, like great proper modeling, everything in there. You're spending an inordinate amount of time building on all of the business speak and phrases and relationships and all of the linguistics on top of your model, so that when you're using that interface for business users, they don't ask questions that result in nothing or that don't mean anything to the business. And that's where it fell down, right? If you're not building the linguistic schema behind the model or on top of it, then there's the model and that interaction between the end user is not a great one. So
Correct.
It's interesting to me that this is part of the September update and that they built tooling in here, but it makes sense if I read the last sentence or the last part of their post, where they say, in the other direction, defining synonyms and relationships can be a lengthy process, just asking to be streamlined with the power of AI-generated suggestions. Keep an eye out in the future for the ways we're bridging the two to bring out the best of both worlds. Now that's compelling.
Yeah, I don't want to do it, honestly.
No, nobody does, which is why I don't think any one of us between our combined like years of experience have ever run into a client that was like built a solution around this. Have you?
Never.
So I think two things there. One, I don't think they know it exists, or they've maybe seen the QA, but how much people are researching this? This is not one of the major features. So yeah, no one's saying, oh, this is one of our big core initiatives. The other side of the coin, though, is too that data literacy side, where a lot of people we know organizations are struggling just to get the names right in their organization, that right. And so much less.
Someone just says sales. You get 4 definitions of sales at this point.
Is one you can't touch. And if
you
talk,
leads, customer. Tell me what's a customer. I don't know. Like,
you're trying to make sure you get the metric right, the calculations. Like, no, we counted based on this and the other side of the coin. So I think we're always running into those problems. I want to play devil's advocate real quick, though, because I think about this.
All right, the devil, let's hear it.
Yeah. So appreciate that. But if you were to have a proper model with all of this built out, and again, this is one of those imagine all the people, but like in that kind of world where you had a proper model with this fully built out,
okay,
theoretically, what type of value in time and in efficiency and in insights could this actually save, even if it was just a team that had this fully built out?
Well, let me. I'm going to take your question. I'm going to maybe extrapolate what you're kind of looking for here on this one, right? So there is immense amount of value. So let me give you just some general trends I see going on, right? In a general trend, typically whenever you wanted to write a program or do something, you had to write it in code. You had to write, a specific language that the computers could understand. With the advent of ChatGPT and now large language models, I no longer need to write code as if it was like JavaScript or C# or whatever the language is for the computers. I can now literally type a phrase or a sentence and I can prompt it. Imagine I am and then you kind of give it a scenario. And then the large language model is able to interpret that, pick out keywords that it thinks are relevant to your question, and then either scrape the web or go find information or go pull out data and come back to you with an answer that says, okay, based on what you said, here's some websites I found, here's some details, here's a written language back to you about what's going on. So I think, Tommy, to your point, right? Let's talk about what do business users want to see about their models? I think we have questions. I think we can articulate the questions as a phrase, right? I think we can, and where I see the gap growing here is I can say, what were my sales for this year compared to last year for my most popular products? Or what are my most popular products this month? What were my most popular products the last 3 months? Right? There's general questions I can ask of the data. Now, it'll be up to Power BI and particular teams. And I think you're going to see a lot of movement in the space around this area where teams will try to take that, run it through a large language model, and somehow, and I don't know how this is going to work, but somehow the model definition should be interpreted by that large language model and respond to me with an appropriate answer. Excuse me, I was sneezing. I had to mute myself there. So I think the holy grail of this thing, I think what people really want is I want to be able to talk to something and have it present to me pre-built visuals and things that come out of a report that I can see. Your most popular product was this. Here's a bar chart that explains that. Here's the reason why this was the most popular. The reason why this was the most popular is because, you know, these 3 regions had above average sales by 10%, right? That's what people are doing in reporting today. They already do this. So to have some more of these mundane, so, you know, I see AI producing for us, right, a lot of the humdrum common things, right? You know, why can't I just tell Power BI, hey, Power BI, I built this visual, remove titles, clean it up, make it work on a dark background. And it should just know how to restylize the theme properties of that visual and then make it for me. Or I should be able to ask questions specifically to the data around things and get it to give me answers. Whenever I've used this feature previously, it's always been a little bit lackluster to me. It hasn't wowed me in the same way that ChatGPT does. So I think we're looking for, I think the expectation around AI and AI-based things with the introduction of ChatGPT and all these other large language models now appearing, I think the expectation has gotten a lot higher for what AI could do to make your job easier. And so I think Microsoft is going to have a very high bar to jump over now with these new large language models in place.
Do you though? Because like, so what piques my interest is obviously manually putting together a linguistic schema to work in a model to work within QA.
Yeah.
Is if you want to go down that road, I'm sure it would be useful for the business to some degree. The amount of effort, I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah.
When you can present the data in different ways. Now, when you're talking about the interaction between ChatGPT or large language models, right?
Yep.
They're so far, I would say, my experience is they help me with the mundane work insanely well. Some of the coding things, yeah. But if we're talking about like all of the sudden having something that just magically somebody can ask any question specific to data, have you guys seen anything that's like stress tested that?
No.
Right? Like, and this is what's piquing my interest here is why would Microsoft go and invest more time into tooling that they haven't done for 4 to 5 years unless all of a sudden that's really important, right? Where's something like the linguistic schema as it's set up where it's like, this is like this is the relationship here, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Not maybe like to tie into the models for sure, but at the same time, like, I don't know how far that extends, right? Like, are there prompts? Are there helpers? Much in the same way that when you're doing machine learning, right? You're putting in prompts to divide data in different ways, right? Or like create your hierarchy of decisions or evaluations along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You're more into this than I am, Mike. There's words for this that I'm just butchering and hacking through, but ultimately, it's a lot of input to receive the expected output or the evaluation that you want. And I don't think large language models are there from the standpoint that like you see stuff out in the market where it's just, oh yeah, well, everything's just going to be, a business user and they can ask for whatever they want and they're going to get it and it's going to be accurate. And no, there's a lot of nuance in business, right? And how do you take that nuance, that business logic, everything that's up in people's brains and put it in a place that can even be digested by a large language model? And that's where I think this gets interesting.
Go ahead.
Because I haven't seen any of that advanced, more diving into the data side of things that automatically replaces business intelligence professionals.
No, and I don't think anything's there. But I think, Mike, you said something that makes me it made me chuckle. Be like, where the QA questions that we're always thinking are, who sold the most products this year, or like, what are my top 5 products? And I always think to myself, that's a Google question. And that's something you would type in Google, and no one, that's not
totally.
Your report already doesn't have that, where that's not what I think people want to ask, or where they would want to invest their time is show me my last product from 5 years, even though I have 10 reports that do that already. They say, give me a breakdown of my sales. And just like the same type of questions you ask in Chat GPT, I think going with the large language model thing, if your company has a glossary, you can, it's incredible what you can do with those. You can just feed those in.
I want to point on this glossary thing.
Going though.
Yeah. Okay. So remember we had an episode, like, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, and we talked about, wouldn't it be nice if ChatGPT had a lot of the low hanging fruit, right? We just have people interacting with data models and data that comes out of our source systems. And, we just automatically know there's a whole bunch of things that link together, right? The common language of the business is just overlaid into multiple things. So I'm in the tool and I'm looking at it right now. I was playing around with adding some synonyms. So you have a table, here's a columns, and it basically rolls through the synonyms on that table and says, here would be synonyms for what you would see potentially in this table. There is this feature now that comes with this, and maybe this is what they're releasing, and I didn't quite get it when I read the blog post about this, and maybe this has been there for a while, I don't know. But there's now a new option. If you add a synonym to your data model, it says, do you want to share this synonym with your organization? You added a suggestion in the synonym. So that way, for example, if someone else, let's say, for example, I could say the word country, the column is country, right? You could add a synonym to country that meant location. Cool. It works for my one data model, but that needs to be into a global glossary for my entire organization. And I think that's what this feature is alluding to. This feature is saying, share your synonyms with everyone in your organization. Now that is something I can get behind, right? Because this is what we were talking about before. AI should be producing a lot of these low weight value ads across the entire organization. So when we say the word customer, there might be other ways the business speaks about that phrase or that column or location or region. Like there needs to be likely other synonyms with that. And as I invest my time on this, I need my time invested into making those synonyms available to my whole organization. Everyone can now contribute appropriate synonyms to this organization. That is powerful. And now we're actually, to your point, Tommy, and you said data glossary, right? That is what I want to see. I want to see people build reports, make synonyms, do things there. And from that, I can now start seeing a graph, information, data about where are my company synonyms? What are people trying to relate together language-wise? And does someone need to review that holistically, not in just one data model, across all data models? That, I think, would be really cool. And maybe that's where they're going with this one. But this feature looks really promising from a sharing and communication around that. Thoughts?
I mean, you said like it would go to all data models, and that's an interesting leap because like isn't some of this data set specific depending on what team you're talking about, and like there's always going to be some conflicts.
But wouldn't there be like a column, if you had a country column, right? There's going to be some things that are going to have common terms with them no matter what you're going to do with them. So, country, brand, your product.
Oh, and it's not to say that actually, well, in all actuality, your point is correct because it's a synonym. So just because it was created in one data set doesn't mean it's not applicable to another.
Yeah.
Right. Where somebody may be asking about location.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I have another here. So another example, right? I'm looking at another table that has products in it. The column is called product. Well, the thing shows up and says, here, do you want to add some approved synonyms? Okay, cool. They have another one, item, artifact, merchandise, produce, right? So they're actually giving you there's an AI suggested thing. And do you want to include this column in AI? And Tommy, this is the other thing that we had problems with before. I never had the ability to toggle on or off. Hey, I don't want the index column in AI. Just don't do it. Like, the surprise, the larger the ID in the index column, the higher the whatever. Like, okay, like that doesn't help me at all. That's not adding any value to when I start asking questions. So we really do need to, there's a lot of things in the model that are not adding value to the analysis that we're trying to do. Well, that's really something you want to exclude.
No, and when I said glossary too, I'm surprised the way you took that. think about this too, and with the large language models where you can actually feed in documentation, or you can feed in a sense, your own definition. This may, if it gets to that point, which I think this kind of would hopefully, from a technology point of view, be a catalyst to bridge the gap from a literacy for an organization, where if you're feeding in your definitions that your organizations actually spend time to do, and that kind of becomes the superseding of, when we say customers, we're always, speaking about either this table in SQL, and here's the business definition, and that can feed into everything else. Well, you can understand what tables you're using, but it's also forcing people to speak the right way too, because you're right, it's not just living in a single data set.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, why is Microsoft doing this? Why are they spending so much time on this? Well, I would be really interested to read the fine print when you're updating here now, because what's the one product right now that doesn't have Copilot at Microsoft?
Power BI.
Power BI, which is very interesting, but it makes a lot of sense, because
but maybe it's just harder to implement. Maybe, maybe
it's a lot easier to say, build me an app, and then, it's like, wow, build me a drop down, and compared to actually working with your data model. Like, this is in Power Automate. This is in Power Apps in a lot of places. And what does AI need in order to work, especially when it's the data model? It needs to understand how, not just us, but they're going to need to know how other people, in a sense, associate the words together. Hey, stores always sell books. Books don't always sell stores, ever. And we've seen that with all these inputs.
Yes.
I think that's part of it too. But no, this is one of those points where, like, in order for any of this to work, an organization has to be solid on their own definitions and the relationships.
And this, again, I'll just say this: the AI experience, from one who used to edit the linguistics model previously, impossible. No way you could do it. This new way of showing, here's recommended synonyms that the tool is providing to you. Like I have, again, I'm looking through some other columns here for another practical examples, right? Sum of cost of goods, right? That's my column, my measure that I built, right? It gives me other options: total cost of goods, summarization of cost of goods, aggregate of cost of goods, right? It's giving you recommended phrases that it thinks of this stuff. And I would hope, right? Please, Microsoft, like if I'm doing this in my company, there's definitely a way of you using this data at the back end level and saying, hey, look, you know how many cost of goods columns there are across all of Microsoft's data models, across every customer that they've ever made? There's tons of these things. There's tons of sum of sales, right? So Microsoft should be grooming, like, what is everyone talking about, and being able to say, well, per our recommendation engine, we're feeding in oodles of data across everyone's models, and here's other people and how they're relating it. So this whole experience could get just way better just by Microsoft scraping their own data and supplying it back to people. Like, they're going to train their models on their own data like this.
Well, it's interesting to see, like, especially if you're getting recommendations for synonyms, whether or not, as you share those back throughout the organization, whether or not those are then recommendations that pop up for other people. I would think that more so than auto getting applied.
It's syncing them with my whole organization. So as I add synonyms to these columns, it's syncing that with, I don't know, something in my org. So again, I don't know how it works yet. I don't know, like, if I publish a separately, totally different model with the same column name, cost of goods or cost of sales, right? Does that in fact automatically apply that synonym for me? Maybe. I don't know. Like, have to do a little more testing around this, but I finally feel like we're at a place where the needs of our business are actually being addressed by some good UI, good recommendations. Like, to me, this is feeling a lot. I'm willing to try the feature now because I could see the potential of it now versus before I tried it and I was like, I was kind of turned off. It wasn't really great.
Do you know where those recommendations really need to come from? What needs to happen, I think,
they all need to come from Tommy.
No, yeah,
Chat
exactly.
GPT,
Your
Tommy.
Governance, yeah, exactly. Tommy,
Sum of sales, total pasta.
Yeah, but honestly, if you, let's say you're using a measure like master accounts, like, hey, we noticed the certified data sets are using master accounts. Is this the same metric?
Yes.
And having that's the association that's needed, because obviously everyone's using like country, but is it customer country, store country? So the recommendations that Microsoft hopefully will apply, and what we need to build is coming from either a certified data set or what you would call like that real master data set of that certain area. if I'm using a certain word, it's like, do you mean store countries? Do you mean customer countries based on these data models? And that's where it binds together. That's where this makes a lot more sense in terms of, I think, a much higher adoption rather than me having to create the wheel in every data set.
I would agree with that one. But this is where I think our conversation was in our prior episode, right? When we talked about AI previously, was where are the things that I spend most of my time just chewing and doing things through? Like, that's the kind of stuff that it should just be automatic. And we were talking a lot less around the data modeling, talk about more of the business rules, the collecting requirements, how people, if we get people asking questions to their data sets and it actually adds them some real value, why not collect all the questions people are asking? Like, they do have, so there is inside this new UI, there is this area where you can review questions. So review your questions. And again, I think this feature has been out for a while, but maybe the UI is slightly updated here. But when you look at the data model, you can actually say, here are questions people were asking and in of the model, and you can refine those questions and change them in a way that actually makes sense for the user potentially. So again, this is another feedback. So to me, this is a great feedback loop of, if we do add questions or Q&A into a report, I need the feedback from it. What are they asking? Did my report, this is the feedback loop of, do we actually like this report? Like, so if people aren't asking questions and the questions are very different from what I think I built the report as, I have a disconnect. My requirements didn't meet the needs of the user as they're asking these questions. So I can use those questions and say, how would I appropriately answer these questions and try and build new pages or new visuals that do support this? So to me, this is a great feedback loop from use the report, ask questions, funnel those questions back into me, and refine my report. Where my head goes in all of this is, where and what do we use this for? Like, I don't think this is a random data set that Tommy and Michael spin up and push out to our local team. I think when you get to this level of investment of time, it's the same thing that Tommy, you talked about the whole time. Do I spend a whole bunch of time making a pretty looking report? Or do I just go to themes.powerbi.tips and download one from the gallery and just start from there and be like, okay, here we go. This is an initial preview. Like, here we go. Start off. So in my mind, this is one of these items where if I'm going to invest a lot of time refining Q&A, putting it on my reports, grooming the questions down, figuring out what people are asking, building synonyms, all these extra bits of time, we're now talking about, this is a central data set. This is something that's bigger than just one little thing. And this is a certified data set. This is the central BI team is doing this work. Or you're planning it out in maybe a sprint or two where you're spending a day, a half a day, just going through and seeing what's in there. But anyways, I'll stop there.
I'll make it interesting for you guys. The last 10 minutes, I got a scenario because I kind of put it on my consulting set and thought, if someone asked me, hey, Tommy, we want you to like really build up for at least one department right now, logistics schema. We really want to invest in this. Like, what would be the project plan? Even if it was just for a subset of the organization, like, what does that structure look like? Yeah, we're not doing it. No one's asking, but okay, then how would we, in a sense, build something up? So I want to see what your idea is, and off the cusp, so to speak, or both of your guys, in terms of that would be your investment for the next 2 quarters. What does that structure look like building that?
Ooh, let me give you just.
You're already kind of pretty on point with me on a few things. Okay. But so that's why I was like, yeah.
So let me first give you a lens into my mind of, where do I place the investment? Right, regardless, this is a time commitment to something. I'm going to have to be doing something above and beyond. So my first inclination is, one, do I have any data sets in my organization that are of a level of where I would want to certify them? Okay. Is it certified already? If the answer is yes, how many certified data sets do I have? Cool. Let's look across all certified data sets in our organization. Which ones are being used the most? So I would invest my time using this feature only in certified data sets that have the highest or second highest amount of usage in the organization. Now, that's just around Q&A. The second part of this is, in my mind, I'm thinking, this is not adding value unless you actually have Q&A enabled on the report in something that you're actually collecting the data, right? So if you build a report, so if all your reports in your certified data set, even though it's used the most, there's maybe an opportunity for you to redesign some reports, but are you willing to put a Q&A box in those reports and let people actually ask questions of the data set? So, to me, the linguistic schema has like a 2-part requirements. Is it used enough? Is it enterprise enough? Well, 3 parts maybe. And am I willing to put a Q&A box on the report? That may not fit this. Like, if you're trying to cater a story in a report, you're not just putting Q&A in there and saying, figure it out, right? So there's, I'm not sure I'm willing to risk my BI's, what do you call it? Like, it's not credits, but
Integrity?
it's integrity credits, right? It's kind of like you have credibility. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm not sure if I'm willing to risk the credibility of the BI team to have a Q&A feature show up on something that I think should be used, but yet get very mediocre results out of it, right? If someone asks 4 or 5 questions of it, and I haven't done the investment of time on me to build good questions to ask about the data, helping you, like, this is a learning curve for the user. They barely knew how to make personalized bookmarks, and yet we're telling them ask a question of your data model and get real answers out of it. Like, to me, that's quite a jump.
That's fine, but I'm saying if the business asking they want to invest in this, they want the Q&A in there.
Who's asking for it? I have never had anyone ask me for this thing.
It's a hypothetical scenario.
Yes,
this is totally
a scenario. I'm not gonna I'm calling you after my business wants this because the company and me. I'm saying but shouldn't take too long. No, but
the barrier is so low. My point here is
because no one
the business is so far behind where I'm asking I'm asking questions of the data. We're still just trying to work through how do we get logged in? How do we get through personalized bookmarks? How do I share something from this report in a way that is approved by the corporate team? Our threshold for getting to like Q&A, I think we're so far behind where we need to be that we're still just covering a lot of fundamentals. So yes, this is cool that it's there. I really think, in my opinion, this is probably a Gartner feature. So when does Gartner come out? Seth,
February.
What year is that? In February? Is that March? When does that thing roll out? So you got to have the AI. Yeah. You got to have AI in the thing. You got to be able to prove you know how to do it. It's like to me, that's like a Gartner feature. You got to have it because every other tool is doing some sort of form of this at some level.
Seth, do you have a different answer? If let's say
someone doesn't like my answer, he's going to go to Seth now.
I'm going to see.
Rephrase your question.
Let me rephrase it. You get an investment. They want to do a pilot on this for one department at your organization. They want to invest heavily on getting this working so people can begin to ask questions. It's only a subset of the company. It's not the whole company. What's in a sense, where do you start? What does that project plan look like?
Well, I'm not going to give you a project plan, but I agree with the main tenets that Mike said. The only one I would add on there would probably be choosing an area with the least amount of ambiguity in business speak. Right. So whether that's just really straightforward areas like sales, right? There's opportunities, there's, and as I say that, I'm like, well, wait a minute. There's a lot to it. Like you'd have to think through like the business logic or how much you'd have to develop. And I'd choose an area that has the least amount of variability or friction or, like reduce the amount of relationships and synonyms and all this stuff that I would have to build on top of, and this is where I think you get the least amount of push into this because it requires fantastic data sets, right? Very well modeled star schema, relational models that like tie out the way you would want them to all the time. And to Mike's point, like use the most would be fantastic as well, right? But I don't know if I necessarily agree, Mike, with bringing the user along with all these additional features that we have out here right now, because this technically would be the easiest feature ever for them to interact with. It's just we're not confident of the results or confident that they would get the output.
I'll give you a good example. I'll give you an example. I'm literally testing it out right now. I'm trying to like, add some suggested questions. And I thought, okay, I'll just do my simple, like I have a column called sum of sales measure and I have a country, right? I'll do what's the total sales by country? And I added my synonym. Yeah. Total sales is one of my synonyms. And then it just produced me a great visual, but it just counted the number of records of sales. It just said count of sales. Like that's not what I wanted. Like, but it's that kind of stuff. Like you look at the bar chart, you're going, okay, it's a bar chart. It's literally like a straight line. Like every bar is the exact same height. That tells me 0 about what I want to know. So like
you need to diversify. That's
I don't know. Like, but
why? But
that's the stuff though. Yeah. It's to me, it's like those things. It's like if I say something I'm going to interpret my lens of the world, how I see things. I'm going to ask questions that make sense to me. And if that visual doesn't like immediately pop out the right answer, it better do a good job of saying, hey, we heard you ask this. Here's 3 different ways we could represent this data. Right. Here's a count of sales. Here's a sum of sales. Here's an average of sales. Like here's 3 options.
This is why code to generate graphs work, because it forces the user to be very specific about the things that they want.
Yes.
I'm not trying to be derogatory, but business intelligence people or people who understand data have nothing to worry about. Like the vast majority, name me one solution. Like, and you hear this from product people all the time too. What we really need is a solution that just lets everybody build their own visuals.
Yes.
No, you don't, because nobody uses it. The lay person in the business does not understand how, like, X, Y coordinates. They don't understand how to group by different things. They don't know they don't know how to put this stuff together to get to the part of which is just analysis, which is what we provide. There's so much work that goes underneath the covers to put together a data set and the visualizations, which we talk about all the time, presented in such a way that they can start to do the work that they need to do. They don't need to concern themselves with all of the other stuff, but at the same time, like, they're not going to be able, like, it's going to be a road to bring everybody up on board, I think, to start asking large language models all of the specifics that they would need to know to generate the outputs that we can generate for them in reporting. Correct. Does that mean, like, I don't think that there's going to be an amazing efficiency curve for our job? No, I think absolutely there is. It's going to be faster and better for us to produce more for the business. And I think there's a lot of value in there, but I don't agree, nor do I think that we're anywhere close to just opening up data sets to a business and getting accurate results that come out of, like, Q&A.
Yes, I agree. And to me, it's all these, like, little things. It's like little tiny things that make a difference, right? For example, like if I said something, what is my total sales of my segments, right? If you change that and say, what are my total sales across segments? We still understand what that means, but the model can't determine across and from. That's literally a 1-word change produces the wrong kind of visual. And
what's interesting is, as you're saying that though, is like you're like, that's where I think LLM would be great in interpreting what you're trying to say, or what you, and maybe that's where it's like, hey, we'll give you 5 different options to select from. Which one looks the best?
And and
that's what I would want. I want
to
produce to me more options. You know?
Yeah.
Give me here. I'm going to type this phrase. I'm going to say the word across versus from or of or whatever. And it should say, oh, here's 3 different ways you could have said the same thing. You can click on each of those phrases. And there's this, Google has trained me, right? As much as Google is an AI-based search thing, right? When you started using Google, you didn't know how to Google for stuff. You were just typing random junk and hoping you got what you wanted. Now that you've been using Google for so many years, Google has learned you how to type a phrase into Google the right way to get the answers you want. Yeah.
Yes. You don't ask questions in Google. It's
taught you, learned you. I don't know.
Important word at the beginning.
Educated you.
Yeah.
But you have learned from Google how to use its tool effectively to get the answers you want. And what we're doing, what I think we're seeing is these large language models are yet another thing that we're learning. We're going to learn how to program the computer to get the answers out that we want. And I think all of this is good. AI, I think, is going to be really interesting. I think everyone's extremely excited about large language models. I mean, you're seeing AI pop up in every tool. If the tool doesn't have AI in it, it's not legit. And if you are a brand new developer and you're looking to do AIs with images, holler at me, because Tips Plus is looking at doing AI on images. So like, give me a holler. We're looking for students in school who may be looking for a senior design project. So give me a holler if you know someone who's looking for some stuff. But as we think about these things, like, it's going to make things better. It just needs some more time to get the right mix of what information can we feed it so it does add value to me right now. And I think what I'm saying right now is the risk is too high. The value is not large enough for me to just kind of like start whipping this stuff out and putting it everywhere at this point. It's getting a lot better. And from where it started, this has been a major improvement. Major improvement. All right. With that, any final thoughts as we wrap here? All right. Everyone's just like, be quiet, Michael. Leave it alone. So with this, I'll say thank you all very much for listening to the episode. We really appreciate your listenership. This has been a good episode, good topic. Hopefully you found some insights here, either from some of the announcements or things and thoughts around AI and linguistic schemas. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe, leave a rating, helps us out a ton. If you have a question, idea, or topic that you would want us to talk about in a future episode, head over to Power BI Tips /podcast, leave your name and a great question. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation live on all Power BI Tips social media channels.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.